So good dog. How are you all? Good? Fantastic. Guys, we have a great Unicorn Summit here. It's our 7th. It's the 9th year of Vator Securities, and we have had a really great win. We did our first main market IPO with Azelia Pharma. Magnus is going to take us through Azelia and the roadmap going there. But I thought maybe I could do a throwback, take you back a couple of years, because I never intended to become a banker, really. So I was a PhD student, and my idea was to really try to understand why some of the academic startups were so successful and some of them were not. And it took me a couple of 3 months, so I went up to my professor and said, I have the truth. And he said, you're arrogant and you're stupid. And I said, you're probably right, but I'm just, I have too much energy. I cannot do this for 4 years because I think telling is not selling. From my observations, a lot of these companies, are engineering companies. They have the best data, they have the best technology, best patents, but sometimes they forget that good patents, great data, it doesn't sell itself. You have to be out there and sell it. And these guys kind of taught me that it's really, really true. So Diamorph is the first company that delivered a 10-bagger to our clients. So that's 10 times your money invested. So it's only the first company that it's not a healthcare. As you guys know, we are super niched into healthcare. The taller guys, Saeed, he thought he had invented a very special glass material, and now the company was sold a couple of weeks ago. I think they had a turnover of 430 million SEK, and they sold exactly 0 crowns from the glass that all of the first investors wanted to scrutinize, look into the patents and the technology. So it never became the commercial success that everybody thought it would become. But they were really good at selling, their technology. So they went out to the clients and asked them, I can solve something. Do you have a problem? Give me your problem and I'll solve it for you, because we have this technology and it's magic, right? And they gathered the best board members, the best talent and money. So they never succeeded in selling the glass that everybody invested in at the first, but they succeeded in building a company that delivered value for the shareholders. And that's, I think, pretty beautiful thing, and I'd love to see more of it. And now that a lot of our client companies have grown so much, they have developed their products, they're past the first initial technical innovations. We really want to bring some wisdom from those who have done it before, and that's why we have got a superstar keynote that's going to tell us how Sobi came to be, because it's obviously a super success story. And we have a couple of other success stories. And so we want to take you through them. I'm going to introduce the guest companies for you. But the idea is to share the insight into knowing how to build a commercial team that actually can take a brilliant innovation into market and get paid for it, good paid. If you haven't, read this paper, I really encourage you guys to do that. It's Lars Hevring, our head of research. He sent me this paper, and I kind of dropped a couple of tears when I read it, because it's so brilliantly put together. Patient and customer-centric commercialization, and I think a lot of pharma companies would benefit a lot into earlier on thinking of how to commercialize their products. Most companies don't, and I think what Sobi did in the start of it and the commercial success they delivered is something to really super impressive, and I'd like to hear more. So I'm going to keep this one short. We have a full day, so I'd like you to keep your questions and thoughts for yourself for a couple of 30 minutes, and then you can shoot them to our keynote speaker, and let's have a dialogue going there. Are you good with that? Fantastic. So, here we go. Hughes. You're up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wow. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Hughes-Wilson, and it's quite daunting to follow an introduction like that. But thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here. I've just come in from London, where I'm now working, and I just have to say it's a huge personal pleasure to be back in Stockholm. You talked about shedding a tear. It was very emotional coming back last night. I spent so many happy years here. So this is a unicorn summit, and one of the things that they say in London is, all the teenagers are wearing it, always be yourself, unless you can be a unicorn, in which case, always be a unicorn. So you guys are unicorns, and I'm going to try and be myself. So the idea that we're going to talk about is how we built Sobi, and I'm not going to talk about the Sobi of today because we have someone, Charlotte, who's going to talk about the Sobi of today. But I'm going to talk about how we built the journey from the company that I signed to join at the end of 2011. And it was a turbulent time. We had several leaders, as many of you will know, over a short period of time. But we knew that we had the possibility to build a great company because we had 3 clinical assets in phase 3 and ready to go to market. In case you're thinking, well, Sobi's far, far, far from me, I just want to say right now I'm working in a London startup called Mereo. We have 4 clinical assets and with 31 people. So I'm taking the lessons that I learned in Sweden, the Swedish model, and taking it to London. So we'll see if we can build the same thing. But as we know, it takes a village. This was not me. It's nice to be here, and thank you for the honor. But the CEO, Jeffrey McDonough, Birgitta and Alan, my 2 co-conspirators in the article, and the whole team that joined the journey. So as I said, I'm going to outline the journey that we took at Sobi. So the question is, why prepare for commercialization now? And several of you will say, well, I'm actually not going to commercialize myself, or it's too early. But it's not too early. The reason to do it is to start now. And the first point is, all of you are looking for funds at some point, I'm sure. Whether you're pre-revenues or whether you've got revenues, you want to do a raise at some point. And of course, you've got great investors because you're invited by them. But you want to do a fundraising, and being able to describe your pathway to commercialization is critical to get the investors to understand that your story has legs. At the same time, if you're pre-commercial, and I can tell you, you're preserving every single penny, and you think, I'm not going to invest in this because I've got, how long's our cash runway? And we look, and how long's the runway? And every penny counts. But the challenge is, if you put it off and put it off and put it off, particularly in healthcare, it's always going to be too early until it's too late. When your trial is designed, when your evidence is out, and then you want to try and sell the product. And you can't go back and rewrite the past. So the time to start is now, whatever your business model is, to think about how am I going to persuade the investors that there's a market for this, or my whole team that we can sell this, or your board, or whoever it is you're trying to convince that there's a pathway for this product. And it can actually make the difference between launching and not launching. And I can think of at least 2 rare disease companies, I won't name them, who really thought that they had a brilliant product and have just not been able to launch it. And it's sitting there. All that investment, 15 years, not a penny coming back in, not launching. Or you want to launch at a great price and a great time frame and get to that return on investment quickly. But even if your strategy is an exit to sell, and I can tell you I've been sitting on both sides of the diligence, if the person comes to you and says, well, how are you going to sell this? And you say, gee, I don't know, we haven't thought about that. We were hoping you were going to. That's not a very convincing story because they're going to start discounting the value of your asset because they know they're going to have to do the work. At the same time, if you're able to say, yeah, we've thought about this. This is the size of the market. This is the target product profile. This is the validation we've done. And this is the amount we're going to capture. This is how much it's going to sell for. Yes, and I can tell you how we've worked all of this out. It's going to be very difficult for someone to drive that down. Because when we do sell our asset, we want to have those billion-dollar deals that we've all been reading about. So even if your strategy is an exit, you just need to think about commercialization now. So it helps if you press the right way. So starting the journey now, but I think back to the Sobi times when joined 2011, and this is the kind of thing that we were dealing with. And maybe some of you are thinking about it in your own companies. We've got a great invention. It's fabulous. It's wonderful. The data, we're going to turn over the data card, and that is going to speak for itself. That's going to tell us everything we need to know. Can be it's not the right time. It's not my job. I'm a scientist. I'm not a scientist. But, you know, it could be that it's a no-brainer. This is going to be a better product. Look what it does. It's wonderful. Everyone's going to know this because, you know, we're convinced. And the last point is I'm a scientist. And this is what we heard at Sobi a lot in the early days. I'm here. I'm going to focus on the science. Those guys over there are going to do it. It's not for me. Not that commercial stuff. So very often when we were facing the initial, and remember, we had a unique situation. We could look into it, no disrespect, but stepping back, we could look like we were looking at a Petri dish in a way, because we had a unique situation of a merger between a commercial company with no R&D and an R&D company with no commercial. And this is pretty much what it felt like at the beginning. And this is how people talked. They didn't use oil and water, but this is how they talked in the corridors when we first joined. So we were thinking about this, and how could we build a united organization that could take the phase 3 assets through to launch for the first time for this company? And this was actually the image that we used. Again, why is this disrespectful? No, an elephant. The R&D department, thinking deep thoughts, really, you look into an elephant's eyes. If you haven't done it, do it. It's amazing. And see, that animal is thinking deep thoughts and trying to change the world. And the mouse scurrying around, the commercial people, you know, it has to be now, come on, quickly, come on. So how do you get the elephant to see the world from the same vantage point as the mouse? Well, you can't really. You can't. So what did we do? We focused on the fact that although we're different animals, we could find a common goal. And the common goal is there's a difference between an invention, this wonderful thing, and an innovation. Now, we can discuss, you know, all the different definitions, but essentially an invention is, wow, look at this is great. And innovation is that thing or a process applied to make something better, to make a business better, to make a life better, to make something better. It's applied. So if we focused on the innovation and the shared goal, we believed that no one wanted the work that they were doing in the house over at KISP, Karolinska Park. No one wanted to come and think, I'm wasting my 8, 10, 12 hours a day. We want to make a difference with this. And this is what we focused around. This was going to be our innovation, was going to be the difference we were going to make to patients. Now, these aren't Sobi patients. These are actually Mereo patients. Ingun and Andre, suffering from osteogenesis imperfecta. They're very severely disabled, but it doesn't stop them going to rock concerts, volunteering. You know, they get the best seats most of the time. But this is our innovation, and that's the innovation we wanted to seek at Sobi, to bring the elephant and the mouse together. So how did we do this? Now, this is typically how one thinks about the end goal in mind, right? All of you, probably in this room, can position yourself somewhere on this. Where are you? Are we here? No, we're not. We're here. But the challenge is it encourages two behaviors. One, that I'm far from the patients, and there are loads of people further down the line. It's not me. I'm going to chuck the ball to somebody else. It's not my issue. And the second thing is you risk having a situation where you create, I've done my job, and that's it. Now it's their job, passing it down the line. But that can have important implications. Now, the first one is our data says this is so, and it's obvious that. And we turned over a data card at Sobi, and it was absolutely fabulous. The data was compelling. It did this thing that it said it was going to be. No doubt about it. It just so happened, for various different reasons, our partner decided how they were going to turn that innovation, that thing, that data, and they decided what the innovation was going to be. Put it out into the marketplace, and that applied invention, that innovation, it wasn't an innovation at all. People couldn't care about it. It didn't matter. And we had the luxury of this Petri dish to actually experiment from that, to understand that, and to rethink it. We took a different approach. The data was obvious, but the innovation wasn't obvious, and we had to ask our customers. The second thing is, again, far from my job, that's their job, the label. The regulatory team did an excellent job on the label. But what we didn't know is that what the label had written was going to be a real problem when we tried to get it into the healthcare system. So another time, it would have been great to know what the healthcare system, the patients, would want so that we could work back. So this model wasn't going to work for us. So we decided to change from an internal focus of doing business with ourselves, where do I stand on this and how far am I from the patients, doing business with ourselves. It's cozy, it's nice. You know, you talk to your friends and your colleagues and you have a nice time. We have lots of fika and we work hard and we know we're doing the right thing. We decided to change. And we brought the external focus to bring the outside in. Not kick it down there, but everyone in the company to bring it in. So there we are. We put the patients at the center. And we shift from an internal focus to an external focus. And we make it everyone's job to be asking the questions. How am I going to turn my invention, our invention, into an innovation that's going to make a difference and that people will want to buy? In fact, what we did is we bridged the gap. Commercialization became something for absolutely everyone. And I just want to give you a couple of examples of how this really, really worked. The first one, of course, and this is my camp, access planning. We went out and said to the patients and to the healthcare systems, we've got this fabulous thing that's going to revolutionize the lives of patients once we got the positioning right and we knew what the actual innovation was. And they said, please, 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 don't make this fabulous innovation something just for the few rich people where I have to choose which of my patients here in Sweden I have to give it to. We went out, we talked to all of the pricing authorities, and TLV here in Sweden was incredibly helpful, and that guided the pricing. We priced according to what we heard. But preclinical, you know, the guys that are far here on the line, we went out and we talked to the Patient Association, preclinical, R&D department. They never talk, they don't do commercialization, do they? Yeah, they do. Because they said, we want to research this disease, and if we want to research this disease, what should we be focusing on? And they had people from the outside at the preclinical saying, if you are going to research this disease, focus on this. Focus on the CNS element. Otherwise, don't bother. And that has guided the R&D department, what they were focusing on. Central nervous system. The other thing, preclinical. It's not important to me if my child goes to university. Well, the first endpoint we were looking at when we designed the clinical trial was an IQ test. Obviously, you know, the children are mentally impaired. This is the IQ test. And eventually a mother just turned around and said, geez, please, I don't care if my kid goes to university. My husband and I have not slept in 10 years. Please, I don't care. I don't care about the IQ. Just we want to get this kid to sleep. Please, that's the thing that will make the difference. This is preclinical, and this has guided the commercialization pathway. And it doesn't stop there. Further down the line, product delivery, packaging. Are they involved in commercialization? Well, yes, actually, because when we went through a process of co-creation, the patients asked us for several different things. It needed to be small and complete and so and so and so. And we were so happy, the smallest one. Look, it's tiny and it's complete. And a mother tested it and came back and said, absolutely not. I've got 3 boys with this condition. And when I opened it, it flips out and the glass vial was got little boys running around. It's dangerous. I don't want it. So we were able to say, it's not the smallest, but this is the best. So it's an ongoing thing. And last but not least, in market. Now, we don't have people in market, but if we did, I'd be asking them. So we did. We discovered that people were going on to a therapy and stopping. Why? They were seriously ill people. And we discovered through a process of listening that the injections hurt. They really hurt. But what we knew is it only lasts for 3 months. But the people taking it didn't. They thought, am I going to have this agony, this pain, ow, for the rest of my life? Oh, I'm not doing that. So we instigated a nurse program to help work through that difficult first 3 months so people stayed on therapy. It was good for the company, but it was good for the patients because they actually got the benefit. So what did we do? This is all great. The first thing we did is we created a mandate and a requirement to go out and listen. Now, in the country organizations, each country organization had to map the patient journey. Not just come and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. No, start from what does it look like? What does the patient journey look like? And where are the different points where we as a company can add value? And then they could talk about what programs they wanted to do, because it was based on research. Now, that's great if you have country organizations. Now, we don't at Mereo. We're too small, tiny. But there was a lot of stuff that was done centrally as well. The payer listening tour was done centrally. We did it from headquarters. There were lots of things that we did from headquarters. So the central team went out, brought it back home, and then acted on what we heard. So you can do this whatever size you are, and it has to be scalable. The second thing we did, and it's really critical, people don't like being changed. People will change, but they don't like being changed. So we took a lot of the things that we found already existing, and not just the 3 phase 3 clinical programs, the great people and all the things that were already existing, and we tailored them to move towards this objective. We brought parents and patients and customers to the existing all-hands meeting, the town halls meeting. We also brought patient and customer representations to departmental meetings. The manufacturing team had patients there. We had the R&D team, they had patients and parents, they had them there. And we also tailored an existing awards program, not to reward the things that we had been rewarding and noticing before, but the things that we were seeking to have people. So we were able to use that existing awards program to elicit, highlight, and focus on that. So people got rewarded for what we were seeking to have them do. And of course, we used things like the incentive programs, the bonus. We didn't have, remember that line I showed you? We didn't have objectives set here for you, and here for you, and here for you, because that creates silos. We had shared objectives that everyone had focused, certainly at the senior leadership team. Everyone was focused on the end goal in the middle. So it was more like a blob and less like a line. And last but not least, research has consistently shown that one of the reasons why change programs or evolution programs don't work is one, where you don't have the systems, the processes, the tools, right? But the second is where senior leadership is not living it, is not doing it, or at worst is acting as barriers to change. So it had to come from the top. We brought patients and parents to board meetings. We had the CEO and the senior leadership participating, not in every meeting, but every customer visit where it was okay and possible and so on. We were delegated like a team with the CEO and the senior leadership team. So we brought it back and said, I have heard this firsthand. This is what we're going to do. So, nice, all that activity, but what were the results? And I think that there are 3 different ways we could think about a company. The first is if you're keeping it in the family, if you're commercializing yourself. Mereo intends to commercialize 2 of our programs. Sobi certainly intended to keep its crown jewels in the house and in the family. As was referred to, we shortened the timelines to launch and to revenue, in one case by up to a year. We were able to launch the product franchise to touch 300 million in Europe alone. That's not too shabby. Kind of like that. That was a really great result. And it's small, but it's important. Brand recognition. Nobody knew who Sobi was. I find that awful, and it hurt me so much. We're facing the same thing with Mereo now. Nobody knows who we are, but we want to change that. But the brand recognition, going out into the therapeutic area and saying, we were unknown a year ago, and now we're recognized as number 2 in that area. And even if you're building to sell, the fact that you could chart a pathway, it means that you can talk about the value of the asset, you can show you've de-risked it, and you can hopefully get the best return that you possibly can. Showing commercial readiness, that you're ready to generate revenue, and that all the things that you need to do is a nice package that you can pass on to the next person, and they can feel confident and pay you for your 15 years of work. And this is the last point that I would like to make about how this business model generated the Sobi, the foundations of the Sobi that has been built on and generated and is delivering huge fruit today. And Charlotte will talk about those results. If you're small, you have to harness everything you have. And so one of the things is the level of employee engagement. So we spoke to someone who'd been on manufacturing for 20 years, had a visit from a patient, and suddenly understood, maybe for the first time ever, the reason that she came to work every day. That level of employee engagement is an incredible addition to building your company. Everyone understands what they're there for, and everyone's focusing on the outside in. The second thing is, we understood more about spending money meaningfully. We discovered that from a patient perspective, there were things that they really wanted to do, but because companies couldn't put their logo on them, no one was sponsoring them. Now, we thought, okay, we can do that. If that's the right thing to do, we can do that. That did two things. One, it made us feel very good about how we were spending the money and really helping the community. There's nothing wrong with that. I like thinking that we're doing the right thing. But the second thing is that patients are no longer passive consumers of healthcare, of our products. They are active decision makers now. So having a patient community that understands your company is doing the right thing and trying to do the right thing, when they're sitting there thinking about what recommendation they're going to make, avoiding conflicts of interest, of course, this is now an engaged community. And last but not least, this is my personal favorite. We were facing a really, really big business problem. We were facing a huge business problem that would actually threaten the launch of one of our products. I don't think there's any bigger business problem than that. And regulatory, not renowned necessarily for being the most business-oriented, savvy commercial people, they wouldn't consider themselves a mouse by any chance. They would consider themselves probably an elephant in the nicest possible way. We got a call from the regulatory department saying, gee, boss, to the CEO, we've been thinking over this business problem, and we think we can solve it. Here's what we want to do. Can we have your permission to do it? And we were like, yeah, quick on mute. What do you think? What do you think? Yes, yeah, talk a bit more. Okay. And actually, they did it. The regulatory team saw a commercial problem that would have prevented our product launch. They came with the answer, the plan to do it. They delivered it. They executed it, and we launched that product. So when you're thinking about what kind of who in your company is responsible for commercial success, I have to say it has to be absolutely everybody. So when we're thinking about what we need to do, and are you far from market, and where do you stand here or there, the answer is that commercial planning was everybody's job. It's something for all of us, no matter where we are in our development, no matter where we are in the organization, no matter what our business model is, buy to sell, do it yourself. And for our products, we might think our baby is beautiful and that everyone will immediately look in the pram and say, yes, most wonderful baby ever. But we have to be able to articulate how can we turn our invention into an innovation that will change a process, in our case will change people's lives, and that people will be willing to pay for. So closing on that, I think it's a huge privilege and honor to have had the opportunity to chart our journey. And thank you for letting me talk about the journey that I enjoyed so much. And I hope that all of you are thinking about where you are in your journey. And if you can learn anything or take any inspiration from the journey that we made, I think that will have been a great success. And I hope you can take your first steps on that next journey to commercialization yourselves, starting, well, this afternoon or tomorrow morning. So with that, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.